Welcome to Dulcimoon Talk number 21. I'm Erin Mae, and today I'm excited to have Lorinda Jones with me. Hi, Lorinda.
Hi, good to be here.
So, Lorinda is a mountain dulcimer and harpist from Kentucky, and I've been able to meet you in person a few times along the way. You play a lot of other instruments too, don't you? What all instruments do you play?
I do. Yeah, you can probably see behind me there my piano, which was my first love of music, was started on the piano, and I still play the piano. I love it. And then you can see on this side, I've got my stack of whistles and flutes and things. So I'm also a wind player and ended up being an oboe major in college. So yeah, so a lot of wind instruments and yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. I knew you played the penny whistle, but I didn't know about the oboe. That's fantastic. So, how did you find dulcimers?
Yeah, after playing the oboe, the penny whistle was such a delight. No reeds. So really, though, it was the oboe that led me, in a roundabout way to play in the dulcimer because I got a degree in music and originally thought I'd be playing in orchestra. That was kind of my goal. And then realized that, oh my gosh, what a competitive world it was to play in orchestra, and especially when there are only two oboes in an orchestra and they usually play until they die. I was encouraged to go with music education, and which I did, and ended up a degree, yeah, in music ed and teaching school. So I taught public school, public music. Started out actually as a band director, and also had an elementary school position. And it was during that elementary school teaching that I found out about a teaching philosophy called Orff Schulwerk, the teachings of the German composer Karl Orff, and how that had been adapted to it was based on German folk music, but it was being adapted to American folk music. And I started going to their conferences. And when I went to one of the conferences, I'll never forget it, was in Atlanta. And guess who was there? Jean Ritchie. And
Wow.
she yeah, it was so amazing because I had never met her before. I had heard about her, but I never met her, and really didn't know anything about the dulcimer. And so she and her sons were there, and also the cardboard dulcimer representative David was there. And so I signed up to make a cardboard dulcimer. I went to all of Jean's sessions and concerts. And what really happened to me that weekend was that I got validation from her. I got validation for having grown up in a very small southern town in Kentucky. And
Mm.
I understood then that my music was important, the music that I grew up around, the music of Kentucky, and it just set me on the path of discovering the dulcimer, and I made my cardboard dulcimer, brought it back, and have never stopped playing since.
Wow. Yeah, one of the great sadnesses to me in the way that classical music education is run in America is that it does not place very much value on local folk music traditions alongside of the kind of formal classical education. And to me, we're both losing out, right? Like the folk musicians are losing out on some of the music education that classical music can really give. And classical musicians are missing out on the appreciation of local culture and the the beauty that like simple folk musicians can bring to the arts process. And I just wish that, I mean, even I went to a school that had a classical music department and a commercial music department, and they didn't cross over. And I can remember that after like one whole semester of being there, I went to the classical music department for something and discovered that they had real pianos in all the practice rooms, and the commercial music only had keyboards in the practice rooms. And so I started going to the classical department to practice piano because I liked the sound and feel of a real piano as opposed to a keyboard. And I was some sort of like weirdo outlier for crossing over between the two music departments. And I thought, what are we doing? This is all music, but so
Yeah, there was definitely, I probably had a semester of, music history study where we talked about folk music, but it certainly, it really was just all in textbook. It wasn't applied. And then, but although now I have to give credit to, of course, here in Kentucky at Morehead State University, which Sarah Kate Morgan, of course, has just been through that program. There are programs now that are starting to see that crossover and that relevance and understanding. So I definitely want to speak out to that. I went to
right.
University of Kentucky, and yes, there definitely was not a connection at that time. But now we do have programs that are starting to see the importance of that. Thank goodness.
Yeah, yeah. We interviewed Elaine Conger, and she also spoke about Orff music. And in Kansas, the popular one is Kodai, but they seem to be
Yes.
pretty similar in the use of folk music in the classroom. So you then brought cardboard dulcimers into your classroom, and you worked with elementary students with cardboard dulcimers.
Yeah, exactly. When I got back from that conference, I, talked to my principal and say, can I ask the PTA for money to, I want to build these dulcimers. I want the parents to get involved, the kids. And he was very supportive. And he said, yeah, sounds like a great project. And so I was probably the first. And again, it's interesting because I am right here in the middle of Kentucky, but I was the first school in our district, which is a very large district here in Kentucky, to have dulcimers. And since that time, I have taught and built, oh my gosh, I don't know, thousands. I wish I'd kept track of how many cardboard dulcimers
Yeah.
and how many school residencies I've done. Almost now, so we went from, ours was the first school to have dulcimers, and now I think I think all the elementary schools do now. Um, and of course
That's
it's really
amazing.
yeah, it's great. And then I was able to continue that ORF connection, and I did several workshops for the ORF for orchestral work conferences. I did both on state level and national level on how to incorporate the dulcimer into those arrangements with the xylophones, and of course how to make that part of the whole classroom experience because it
Yeah.
is an American instrument and it should be there. If we're going to focus on folk music, it should be a part of that. So that's yeah, that was a big part of what I felt really good about that contribution.
Yeah. Oh, Lorinda, that's amazing. So how did you end up from going from music education into music therapy work?
Yeah, so getting into I loved my music ed work, and I did teach for 13 years, and then things were starting to change. I had a turnover in administration, and the district was going through some different policy changes, and I wanted to go back to school anyway and work on another music degree, and so I ended up choosing music therapy because I had taken some counseling classes and found I was very interested in this. We didn't have music therapy offered in Kentucky schools, so I ended up going to Tennessee Tech in Cookeville to do that and study that. And so it was great. It was all I hoped it would be. It was a way of still being able to make music and share music, but also work with a very special population and work with a lot of different different populations. And so it was just a good time to transition for me. I had been working in the school system where I was seeing 1,000 kids a week, literally, which is a lot, of course. And the
Yeah.
music therapy was a nice change because I started working with individuals and very, very small groups, and I was able to focus on, just a different type of way of delivering my music, and still keeping the, being able to play, and work in the school system because I came back and offered those services in the school system. So I was still in public school, um, but with a different focus.
Yeah, yeah. Um, my first plan for my life was to become a music therapist, and that hasn't yet panned out, but it's something that I'm deeply interested in, and it it seems really powerful. Kansas University in Lawrence, Kansas was actually the first school that had a music therapy
Yes.
degree. And I looked at that program quite extensively before ending up in a different place. But the the science behind music and being human is pretty amazing.
It is, and of course now they're able to do so much more than what, even, when the music therapy program started in Kansas, that was all, our research was based on what we could see happening, especially those coming back from the war, and how it was healing for the soldiers. And much of it was objective and subjective. But now, of course, we have MRIs, and we have data that we can actually look at electronically, see how the brainwave shifts when you hear music. And so now, the research behind it is just growing exponentially. Much more, there's much more there than even when I started, 25 years ago, because
Mhm.
now we can actually X-ray, through X-ray and MRI, we can actually see what's happening in the brain. And it's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So are you still working mostly in like school settings with music therapy, or do you also do hospital settings? What's your demographic these
Yeah.
days?
Yeah, so I did the school system for about 20 years, and I understand why there's time that they suggest that you retire from schools because my energy level was definitely shifting, and so I had established a music therapy, it's called Music Therapy Services of Central Kentucky, and we delivered, and I had, at one time I had five contractors working for me because we were providing for all schools all throughout Kentucky, and we were in different positions. And so, within this last 5 years, this was my goal at this time in my life to transition that ownership of that school services over to one of my colleagues that had worked with me. And so, and just this past year, in fact, we've officially made that transition, and she is now, in charge of the schools. So just up until, a couple of years ago, I was still going in and doing assessments and helping with placement, and developing, um, yeah, lesson plans and session plans. Um, but I'm officially saying I'm not doing schoolwork anymore. And so the last 3 or 4 years, I've started focusing more on a population that I don't have to chase around the room, which is
Fair.
the memory care unit, dementia, Alzheimer's. Yeah. So I did some hospital work for a while, but that was driving to Louisville, and it was something I didn't want to continue long term. So now, yeah, mostly doing dementia patients, Alzheimer's, assisted living.
Mhm, mhm. So I'm curious because you, in addition to being a musician, clearly seem to be pretty savvy at running a business, which is a side of being a musician, which sometimes it's a different part of your brain, like it's a different skill set. And sometimes in creative circles, there's a little bit of like, you're you should be doing the creativity just to be creative, right? And not as a business. So I wonder if you would just talk a little bit about like, for you, how do you think about being a musician who's also running a business and doing it professionally? And like, what is that like for you?
Yeah, that's so important. And in fact, just recently I was interviewed by the music director at the University of Louisville, and that was one of her questions was about the music business part. And I said, I can tell you that I think all music therapists should, all musicians, all music majors should also be required to take a basic business class. Because I had to jump into that. I mean, because I was going with contract work after I stopped teaching public school system, I was on contract rather than employment. So I had to learn how to be self-employed. Thank goodness my mother and father actually ran a business all their lives. My dad ran a machine shop, and my mother ran she was the bookkeeper for the business. And so I remember going to my tax person and saying, I'm getting ready to shift. I have no idea what to do. And he was from, the town where I grew up, and he said, you have a mother who is an excellent bookkeeper. And he said, go to your mother and you need to take the basic accounting class, and she can help you set up basic accounting. And I did that, and it was amazing, and it was so interesting because I always just kind of took for granted, my mom's okay, mom's down at the shop working on the books, whatever that means,
Right.
she's putting in the file cabinet, whatever that means. And then I realized how much skill mom had, and it was probably mom that made dad's business successful because she understood how the money worked. She had also been a bank, she had also worked at a bank before she started doing the books. So mom had really good background for that. And so I literally had her help me set up a basic business plan, a basic business accounting. I did it all in pencil at first because I did have to keep track of the music therapy. I had to keep track, of performances and publications. I mean, it gets really complicated very quickly if you're going to do it right and if you're going to do it, yeah, legal. And so she helped me set all that up, and again, I had a really good tax person, and he went over everything with me as well. And I just learned as I went, and it's very important though, and you do have to just compartmentalize that, and you have to say, okay, this is the day and time I have to do the books. I have just like I saw mom do, and now this is the day I get to be creative and play and make music, and it's just part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right that music majors and anyone who's contemplating doing music professionally really needs that business background side. And I'm learning it as I go, and it seems like it would have been easier to take a class. Yeah. And
Well, life
we
is
are usually working with a lot of different revenue streams, right? It's not like you go to a job from, and then that person pays you and then that's the end of it. It's like, well, have a contract to do this, and I'm volunteering here, and I'm getting paid by tips here. And this one is a one-time contract, and this one's a 6-month contract. And it's a lot of different parts and pieces have to come together.
exactly, yeah. And I mean and I mean you have to find a way to organize it. And if you can't organize it, if that's something that you're not, if you realize I just cannot do that, then you have to ask for help, and you have to have someone that can help you do that, because and not everyone's going to want to do that. And that was another thing that I told my when I was interviewing with her students. I said, you have to decide if this is something that you do want to do. And thank goodness I had help and I was able to do that. And that's one of the skills I think that I got from my mom. She was a very good organizer. And, for me, I was able to do that. I was able to work out a time to do that. But, it's not for everybody. And you may want to stay with a job where it's one paycheck, one thing, and that's all you have to do instead of, yes, having, I mean, there were months when I probably had 25 different revenue streams coming in. And I
Mhm.
had to send invoices out. I had to, I mean, I just, yeah, it was a business.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to kind of back up because I missed one of the questions that we try to ask everyone, which is in your musical journey, have there been any women along the way who are particularly influential in leading you to where you are as a musician?
When I think about it, it's all women who have been very
Wow.
influential for me. When
Amazing.
I was one of the few people, yeah, I was one of the few people I think that grew up at the time that I did in the 70s that had a female band director. And she was newly hired to our system. When I got there, she was brand new. She was starting from scratch. She was starting in a small town who probably had some reservations about a woman coming in to do that job. And she did an amazing job. She was very well respected. She was the one that said, "I need someone to play the oboe, and you did really good on that music test, so you're going to play the oboe." I would never have played the oboe if it had not been for her. And
Uh,
she's the one that said, "Okay, you're going to go audition for college. You're going to, you could get a scholarship. So I'm going to take you to this audition." And it was
wow.
also my piano teacher from third grade on that I absolutely adored and loved. And she was female. And it was my older sister who was female and played the piano at church that I loved to hear. And then and as I already mentioned, meeting Jean Ritchie and having that influence, when after I got my dulcimer here in town, there was one other person that played the dulcimer. She was female. She also was a folk musician that did the folk music circuits around Berea, and she became a very dear friend. And I miss her so much, but she was the one other folk musician that lived here in this county, and so, and I've always played with other female musicians. I met female, there was at the college here was a female director at the community college who got involved with our music. Um, I have, lots of women in our Dulcimer group and our Harp group. So, yes, I have all women just about that are my major influences for everything that I've done musically. And of course, and now, I play in an all female Irish band, and which is unusual. It is not very common to find that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, go, go girl power. It wasn't
Yay.
something and it wasn't something I consciously decided, but I think I just feel very. I love being around women, and I love being around women that know what they want to do, and they have goals, and they do it, and they're strong, independent women, and that's, yeah. I've always, and of course, and as I was talking about my mother, so
Yeah.
yeah, women have had a lot of effects on me.
That's
And I
amazing.
hope I can pass it along, to someone else, to some other
Hmm.
women.
Hmm. Well, I can say that you are doing a great job of that. And I mean, look at how many, you don't even know how many cardboard dulcimers you've built. So that's an incredible number of people who've been exposed at least to that tradition and to you as an educator and a person. I don't know. I think our music teachers can sometimes have the biggest influence on our lives. Maybe that was just because I was really interested in music, that my music teacher had a really big influence on my life. But I think that music teachers are extra special. So, we haven't really talked about harp, but I know harp is something that you have also been playing and teaching. So when did harp come along in your journey?
Well, again, another great female player. When I was at Kentucky Music Week weekend, when early on in playing the dulcimer, I had a band from California, and I'll never forget Margie Butler was playing the harp, and I had always been around harps, in the orchestra setting, but had never seen the smaller folk harp. And as soon
Mm.
as I saw it, I was so intrigued with it, and I thought, that's small enough for me to handle. I think I could do that. And I had always loved harp and I had my own collection of harp recordings, but never thought about me playing really. And so when
Oh,
I saw her playing, and she stuck around for the weekend and did some workshops, and I took a couple workshops with her and thought, I can do this. I want to do this. And so, yeah, I just looked around for a used harp, and I did a lot of self-taught things because, it was hard to find anyone around
mhm.
that taught. And so just got into it, and it was just a great way to combine what I was doing with the dulcimer already. And then at that time, I had already started doing music therapies, and I knew it would be a very effective instrument in that setting. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who doesn't sort of simultaneously light up and relax when there's a harp in the room. It's a pretty magical instrument. So you recently went on a trip, which I think we should definitely talk about because you were in England about a week after I was in England. I think Jeff and Anne hosted my husband and I, and then we're talking about how excited they were to be able to see you a week or so later. So tell us about your trip.
Yeah, it was great. And this is the like the third leg of this trilogy that our I had set out as a goal for our local harp ensemble. We said, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go to Ireland someday as a group and get to know more about the history of the harp? And I was like, that would be a great goal. We should explore all three of those lands where the harp is a major part of their national history, which is Scotland, Ireland, and Wales. And so this year, after it was postponed for 3 years due to the pandemic, this one was a
Yeah.
long wait coming. We did get to go to this, go to Wales. The trip was put together in conjunction with Celtic Journeys. I met the this company, Celtic Journeys. Maria is from Ireland, and she sets up tours in Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. And I met her through a contact at John C. Campbell Folk School because she works with, craftsmen in setting up customized trips. And so I talked to her about it, and so we've done the trips with her each time. So I knew it would be a good trip because she has all the contacts and does
Mm.
all the paperwork in advance. We just show up and get to take advantage of it. And this year it was great to add that dulcimer element with Duncan and Jeffrey, and it was such a special day getting to see their home and be invited in to hear the concert, and then eat, have a picnic on the grounds while we were there. And everyone, whether they played dulcimer or not, just loved the day, fell in love with them. And so that was such a special addition. And then we concluded, and then on the other side, we also did get to meet up with the Triple Harp Society of Wales, and they happen to have a new exhibit in the on the Isle of Anglesey. There is a gallery there, and one of the harpers that is a descendant of a triple harp player set up this and we happened to be there while it was still on. So we met at the gallery, saw the exhibit, and then members of the Triple Harp Society played a concert for us, treated us, of course, to tea and scones, and then taught us a tune on the triple harp. They brought in enough triple harps for us all to play, and it was so fun.
I love it. I have I have had a long held belief that music has is a powerful connector. And you were talking about how many students you were teaching and how nice it was to sort of move to music therapy and work with a smaller number of people, which gives a little bit different kind of connection with them. And I have felt similarly in making the transition from primarily performing, which as you become more successful at performing, generally what happens is the size of the audience and the stage and the venue gets bigger. And when that happens, the connection is decreased in my experience. And so I was, becoming successful at performing with my sister and also simultaneously feeling like I was losing the connection that the music brings. And teaching for me was a way of coming back to the heart of connection. And I will say that being overseas this year, after 3 years of connecting with people through events like Quarantine and Zoom, it has just been like, I don't know, it's like reinforcing that deep belief I have that music is a connection point, and we don't have to have everything in common, but when we start from the commonality of shared music and we come at it with this mentality of all learning from each other, it just seems like we can embrace each other as humans in a way that I want the world to like be a part of. I want them to get that experience, so.
Yeah, we got to really see that understanding of the music language taken over the spoken language because they spoke fluent Welsh. This was in northern Wales, and most of that area, that Welsh is the Gaelic Welsh is their primary language. English is their second language. So when
Yeah.
they spoke to each other, it was always in Welsh. And it was so cool listening to their little bit of rehearsal before they played. And it was so funny. We looked at, those of us that play together here, we looked and we said, I have no idea what their words are, but I know exactly what they're saying. They're saying, are we going to play AABB? Are we going to repeat? Who's going to play the bass line? Who's going to play the middle part? I didn't practice that part. Did you? Can you cover that? And it was like the whole script was there, even though we couldn't understand a word they were saying. And it was like, yay, this is such a validation. This is exactly what we go through as an ensemble before we play. And it was so hilarious seeing that and hearing that.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. It's a small world.
It really is. It really is. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, so I noticed in the Facebook chat, a few people asked about some resources related to music therapy. So I wonder if you have any suggestions for folks who are interested in it, maybe not going to get a degree in music therapy, but would like to have a better understanding of music therapeutically. Can you recommend some things?
Yeah, the website that of the American Association, it's AMTA, American Music Therapy Association, and they have their website is very functional with all the updated information about what a music therapist does, how to get trained, where you might find someone, and lots of anecdotal notes about what's done. There are some video clips about music therapy in action. So that's where I would start. AMTA, American Music Therapists.
Awesome. Yeah. It's been a while since I've been to their website, but I remember looking at it extensively for a while. Awesome.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
I did. Even when I started considering going back to school, I contacted them and got all the information. And so they're a great resource.
Good. Good. I know, even my local library in Concordia, Kansas, when I was in high school, had several books about music therapy too. And so just going to your library and asking for some books might be another way of reading up. They had the Mozart Effect was the
Wow,
first one I
I'm
read,
impressed.
and it was great. So, um, all right. So what do you got going on next in your life? What are you excited about right now?
Well, right now I'm packing to go to I think it's pronounced Wallowas in Oregon. So it'll be my first trip out there. Well, did go to Manucha, but this will be the first time to go to Wallowas. And so a week of Dulcimer camp and looking forward to just, yeah, meeting folks out there and seeing that beautiful, I know it's going to be beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful place to meet, and quite different from my other trip that did include some places that had lots of tourists around. So this will be a nice, quiet spot to make music, and so that's yeah. So and after that, I'll my summer travel, yeah, get back here and catch up on things. And I have some things I'm working on to start in the fall for with Lesson Face. I've been working with that group, which I learned again through John C. Campbell, which has been a great resource for me for lots of things. They started partnering with Lesson Face during the pandemic, and I've gotten to know those people and really respect and love what they do. And so I'm teaching private lessons through them. I'm also teaching group lessons. I did my plan by ear course that ran from January to May. Did that this year, and then this fall I'm doing a kind of a self-guided some and kind of a combination of self-guided. We're trying this out, and um, some work, individual work on playing in DAA with the noter, and we're gonna try to launch that this fall. And then I'll also probably do a fall class, with the harp, and yeah, then just regular stuff.
Fantastic.
So yeah, so mostly now, yeah.
Yeah, I love getting your newsletter because you've always got lots of things coming up and of such a variety of different things that you do with your music. So thank you for sharing about your story with us. Is there anything I missed that you want to make sure we throw in?
Oh, that's probably more than anybody wanted to know. uh,
Definitely not.
yeah.
I love all of it. I love the all the different threads that come together to make our life stories, and what a beautiful story you have with so many
Yeah.
different people that you've
Thank you.
impacted in all different ways.
It's funny because there have been times in my life I thought, my life is so disconnected. I have so many different threads, so many different things going on, and like you said, trying to balance the business part and get it all together. And a couple of years ago, one of the students in the graduate department at University of Kentucky, their music therapy department, wrote a thesis on the history of music therapy in Kentucky, and I ended up being the subject of the thesis because I was the first music therapist to employ, to use the dulcimer and to continue, the longest running music therapist at that time in Kentucky. And it was so neat because when I read her thesis, I thought, oh my gosh, my life actually makes some sense.
Yeah,
It
sometimes it takes
connected.
someone else to see that all of those threads made a tapestry, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It felt like that to me. It was like finally, it was like, oh wow, maybe this is all have a connection, and you don't know it at the time. You don't know how it's going to connect. You just have to have faith that it is going to connect in the right way. And so it gave me again kind of that validation that I got from Jean Ritchie years ago, that if you just do what you love, do the best you can at what you love, and treat everybody kindly along the way, that life will be okay.
It's been wonderful to hear you, Lorinda, and I want to make sure you check back on and the Dulcimoon group and see the comments, and that there are people in Wallowa who are waiting to meet you.
Oh, how nice. Thank you.
Yay. All right. Well, I have already kept you longer than I said I would, so I'm going to let you go, Lorinda. But thank you so much for sharing this time and space with us. LorindaJones.com is your website, is that right? All right. So go check that out. And thank you again, Lorinda. It's been lovely to spend some time with you today.
Thank you, Erin and DJ, for keeping the women folk together.